This could get very serious. Alexander Isak and his team are considering taking legal action against Newcastle for defamation. It all centers around an article in the Telegraph quoting sources from inside Newcastle. We'll get into all the details and I'll tell you the full story in a minute. I'm Lawrence on Liverpool, a brand new Liverpool fan channel. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Help me get there. So the first I heard of it was this tweet from Chris Williams, who is a British sports journalist. He says he's informed by an individual inside Universal 22. That is an agency working with Alexander Isak. They are looking at whether there's a defamation of character case to answer for the publication of highly controversial, unverified remarks in a UK national newspaper about Isak deliberately trying to sabotage matches. I'll show you that article in a minute and we'll go through some of the sections where that may be saying. But straight off the bat, that is a pretty heinous allegation to make against any professional footballer, that you're trying to sabotage matches, you're trying to miss goals, you're trying to not help the team win. No wonder Alexander Isak would feel furious at that, and him and his agency would be considering legal action. The problem here is, can you really take legal action against Newcastle if it's a newspaper that's reporting it without verifying the exact sources they've got it from? Just like everything else in this whole Alexander Isak saga, very messy. Magpie 24/7 on Facebook also had this to say: Alexander Isak is taking legal action against Newcastle United. Yes, Isak has been the story of the summer and it may not be done yet. Court Offside are also talking about it. They're saying that Newcastle feel the player, Isak, had deliberately underperformed so that Newcastle failed to secure Champions League qualification, because Isak felt that if Newcastle got Champions League, it would be harder to engineer a move away from the club, harder to justify him wanting an exit, right? He's in the Champions League. Why would he want to leave? But it's all come out now that Isak always wanted to leave Newcastle at the end of the season. Whatever happened, whether they made Champions League or not, he had his mind set. He was leaving Newcastle no matter what. Questioning the integrity of a player who helped Newcastle win their first trophy in decades crosses a dangerous line. I agree. Now, I've been critical of Isak's behavior. I don't know the inside story, but I've said that any player who refuses to play when they're under contract, I don't like that kind of behavior. I get mistrustful of that. And now I'm worried as a Liverpool fan, what if he falls out of Liverpool at some point? What if he wants to engineer a move to someone else in a year's time? Will he refuse to play for us, even when we're paying him 200,000, whatever it is, a week? So this makes me a little bit cynical of Alexander Isak, but I would not go as far as to say that I think he'd be sabotaging matches. That's insanity, and it's incredibly offensive to a professional footballer to be accused of such things. Remember, he was second top goal scorer in the Premier League last season, behind our very own Mo Salah. Without those goals, Newcastle wouldn't have got into Champions League. They wouldn't have been that high up in the Premier League, and they certainly wouldn't have won the Cup against Liverpool in the final, where Isak scored again. And did you see those shots of him when they won the Cup or when they secured Champions League positions? He was jumping up and down like a madman, super, super happy because he had achieved something with his teammates. Did not look like a man who was gutted to be winning things with Newcastle. And there's a few comments here back on the original tweet. The even more bizarre thing is that Isak scored 4 goals and 1 assist in his final 10 games of the season across March, April and May. That doesn't sound like you're phoning it in or actively sabotaging games. I agree. So this is the article that's causing all the drama. The inside story of Alexander Isak's bitter 130 million exit. So apparently it started in July 2024. Paul Mitchell becomes a new sporting director. He's realizing, God, finance is a bit out of control and we cannot give Isak a £250,000 a week contract because we're just going to get into trouble with our finances. So they didn't follow through with a new contract that was promised by former co-owner Amanda Staveley. Now, if you've been promised as Isak and your team and your agents and people around you that you're getting this new contract, just because there's been a change of personnel at the top, you wouldn't expect that promise to be broken. But Newcastle broke it. And they said, look, okay, my predecessor was a bit nuts. She offered you something we can't actually afford. I'm here to tell you we cannot afford to give you that kind of money. We're not going to give you a new contract. Isak's like, fine, but then I am out at the end of the year. I want you to sell me because you've broken this promise. Don't keep me. Don't force me into this club where you're paying me less than what I want. Let me go. But Newcastle and Eddie Howe, apparently, according to this article, say that they didn't know. They weren't told by Isak this would be his last season. Seems like Isak him and his agent decided this would be the last season, but no one actually told them. So they never knew they were meant to sell him and never actually agreed to sell him. There wasn't actually that clear-cut conversation had. This bit is a little bit murky. It says that Isak was saying in interviews he was super happy at Newcastle. He was not thinking about a future away from the club when they won the League Cup final in March against Liverpool. That's some time after apparently he had already decided he was definitely leaving Newcastle. Was he just doing a PR spin? Was he just saying what he's meant to say as a Newcastle player? Or is that evidence that maybe that conversation hadn't happened and he hadn't actually locked in his mind that he wanted to leave, therefore throwing up a lot of his version of events into the air? And so then we reach later into the season, and Howe has since revealed the player informed him that he would like to go 2 weeks before the end of last season. So Eddie Howe didn't know that Isak was even wanting to leave a club until 2 weeks before the end of the season. Who you believe? Eddie Howe, Isak? Do you even believe this article is accurately representing either side's story? But when Eddie Howe and the board said, we don't want to sell you, Isak was upset. The story says Newcastle then did offer him a pay rise and a new contract if he committed to 1 more year. Isak didn't want it, said no, thank you, and tried to say to Newcastle, get in my replacement immediately, I want out. And then Mitchell, the sporting director guy who came in and said, we're not going to honour the promise made to you about the contract improvement just at the beginning of the season, then leaves. It's all been one massive mess in Newcastle, hasn't it? But here's the crux of the whole story, where Isak is being accused of effectively sabotaging the games by not putting in the full effort. I'll read this to you. However, insiders say Isak's behaviour changed after the Wembley win. He became quiet and withdrawn. He was not focused or working hard in training. Indeed, some insiders suggested from April onwards, Isak was behaving like someone who did not want the team to qualify for the Champions League because it would make it harder for him to explain to Howe and the supporters why he wanted to go. Some insiders suggested. Who are the insiders? They need to be verified. Who do they suggest it to? Are they suggesting an accurate depiction of the story? And that to me makes it feel like Isak's team don't really have a case here, because unless you can identify the exact people, make sure they are high enough at the club, hold a powerful enough position for Newcastle to be accountable for their views. So be on the board effectively. I think it's very easy for Newcastle to get out of it. If you can identify who they are, and let's say they're just someone who works in the boot room, then Newcastle can just say, well, their opinions are not reflective of Newcastle as an organisation. You can't say that if it's a sporting director, for example. So my gut feeling is this story isn't going to go anywhere. How did it get leaked that Alexander Isak's team are considering legal action? Well, maybe this was a PR stunt to claw back some more favour for Isak against Newcastle. That article came out, people read it, they go, whoa, is he really downing tools even at the end of last season and not trying to help win games? They have a bit of a reputation polishing act to do with Alexander Isak, I think, to make him feel more trustworthy. Just remove some of the damage this whole messy situation has created. I won't be surprised if it's just a PR leak and it's a bit of posturing and nothing more than that. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Who do you believe? Newcastle, Isak, neither of them? Tell me what you think in the comments and I'll speak to you again very soon. Oh, one more time, I keep forgetting to do this at the end of videos. If you're still watching, give me a subscribe. The goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. I'd really appreciate if you help me get there. Take care. Bye-bye.